Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds. We want to welcome our friends in South Africa, the United States, and around the world to this week's edition of A Conversation with El-Hajj Mauri Saalakhan. I'm pleased to be your host, coming to you once again through the Salam Media platform out of Johannesburg, South Africa. Salam Media is an online portal for humanitarian journalism. We don't just report the news. We advise you on what you can do about it. Today's broadcast is titled Injustice Anywhere is a Threat to Justice Everywhere. Before we get into today's topic, I want to say something about the latest developments in Asham or Syria. The images of former political prisoners being reunited with their loved ones in Syria are emotionally heartwarming, to say the least. While we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless our liberated, quote unquote, Syria, we must also, and this is very important, we must also remember to ask Allah Ta'ala to protect our brothers and sisters of Syria from the opportunistic vultures lying in wait in the shadows of their liberation. Let us not forget what occurred in the aftermath of the quote-unquote liberation of Iraq, the liberation of Libya, the liberation of Afghanistan, and the list goes on and on. The opportunistic vultures are always present, waiting for the opportunity to strike. In their materialistic calculation, there are no permanent friends nor enemies. Only interests. This is the philosophy they operate through. Now, with that being said, the primary focus for today's broadcast will be on political prisoners in the United States. Our return guest for the conversation is a well-known and respected activist within the National Jericho movement and a good friend of mine, Paulette D'auteuil. Before we bring her on, there's a piece of video we'd like for our audience to take a look at. The video is on a Native American political prisoner by the name of Leonard Peltier. Let's see that video, Brother Sonic.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. President Biden's facing calls to grant clemency to the jailed Native American leader Leonard Peltier. He spent nearly half a century in prison for a crime he says he did not commit. Leonard Peltier recently turned 80 years old. He's always maintained his innocence over the 1975 killing of 2 FBI agents in a shootout on the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. His supporters say his conviction was riddled with irregularities and prosecutorial misconduct. In a moment, we'll speak to the head of Amnesty International USA, but first I want to turn to a video Amnesty produced about Peltier's case that's narrated by the actor Peter Coyote.
I am everyone who ever died without a voice, or a prayer, or a hope, or a chance.
Leonard Peltier is a Native American activist who has been in prison for more than 46 years, serving 2 consecutive life terms for a crime he maintains he did not commit. In 1977, he was convicted of killing 2 FBI agents, Ronald Williams and Jack Kohler, during a shootout on the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. Peltier was a member of the American Indian Movement, AIM, founded founded in 1968 during the Civil Rights Movement to advocate for the rights of Native Americans. The murders occurred at a time when AIM supporters and residents of Pine Ridge were being intimidated and killed, allegedly by paramilitaries connected to the government. A climate of fear and terror prevailed. After 2 AIM members were acquitted of the killings, the FBI coerced witnesses into saying they saw Peltier shoot the agents. Ballistics evidence that could have aided Leonard's defense was hidden from his lawyers.
The only thing I'm guilty of is struggling for my people. I didn't kill those agents.
It was not a fair trial, the conclusion reached by federal appeals judge Gerald Heaney, who stated the prosecution withheld evidence favorable to the defendant, and the FBI used improper tactics in extraditing Peltier and otherwise in investigating and trying Peltier's case.
I'll be an old man when I get out. If I get out.
Leonard Peltier spent more than 46 years in prison, some of which was in solitary confinement. He is now 78 years old and in rapidly declining health. There are concerns that he is not receiving adequate medical treatment and his condition could be fatal.
They're giving him the death penalty by leaving him in that type of an environment. The man needs medical treatment. He needs to have access to medical treatment. If they're not going to give medical treatment to him, they need to release him as soon as possible.
Amnesty International is calling on President Biden to grant Leonard Peltier clemency before it's too late. President Biden has a chance to rectify a case that has troubled many people for decades.
A video produced by Amnesty International about the jailed Indigenous leader Leonard Peltier, who on September 12th turned 80 years old. Peltier's supporters are hoping President Biden will grant Peltier clemency before he leaves office in January. 24 years ago, President Clinton faced similar calls. On Election Day 2000, I spoke to Bill Clinton when he called into our Pacifica radio station, WBAI, to get out the vote. I asked him about Peltier's case.
President Clinton, since it's rare to get you on the phone, let me ask you another question. And that is, what is your position on granting Leonard Peltier, the Native American activist, executive clemency?
Well, I don't have a position I can announce yet. I believe there is a new application for him in there, and when I have time after the election's over, I'm going to review all the remaining executive clemency applications and see what the merits dictate. I will try to do what I think the right thing to do is based on the evidence.
That was President Clinton almost a quarter of a century ago. In 2012, I had a chance to speak to Leonard Peltier by phone. At the time, Barack Obama was president. Leonard, this is Amy Goodman from Democracy Now! I was wondering.
How are you?
Hi, I'm good. I was wondering if you have a message for President Obama.
I just hope he can, stop the wars that are going on in the world and stop killing all those people getting killed, and give the Black Hills back to my people and turn me loose.
Can you share with people at the news conference and with President Obama your case for why your sentence should be commuted, why you want clemency?
Well, I never got a fair trial, for one. They wouldn't allow me to put up a defense, and manufactured evidence, manufactured witnesses, tortured witnesses. The list just goes on. So I think I'm a very good candidate for, after 37 years, for clemency, or house arrest, at least.
That was Leonard Peltier speaking to me in 2012. We're joined now by Paul O'Brien, Executive Director of Amnesty International USA. He recently wrote to President Biden urging him to take a number of actions before leaving office, including granting clemency to Leonard Peltier. We're going to go through your demands, Paul O'Brien, but let's start with Leonard Peltier, who has been in prison for almost half a century now. Why are you calling for him to be released?
Hi, Amy, and thank you for your steadfast work on Leonard's case over the decades. Like Amnesty, we have been calling on administration after administration to do the right thing by Leonard. He was in hospital in June. He was in hospital again in October. It's time to give him a chance to spend his last days with his family and with his community. He's been incarcerated as long as Joe Biden has been in national politics, and we all know how long that is. President Biden he doesn't have to pardon him. He just has to give him clemency so that he can spend those last days with the right people. And he can send an important signal to the Native American community that will fracture some of the divisions that are still felt over these issues.
And Paul, for those people who are not familiar, could you explain the difference between the pardon and clemency?
Well, clemency doesn't have to pass a ruling on the actual decision. It simply is an act of compassion by the president to say he has served enough time. As you said on the earlier piece, this has essentially become death penalty through incarceration. And if President Biden, who says he's opposed to the death penalty, wants to do the right thing by Leonard, he will say 50 years is enough. It's time to let him spend his last days with his family.
Painful to watch. I was just going to say, Juan, it was painful to watch yesterday. I mean, it's become this tradition over the last few decades for the president, right, to pardon turkeys. And yes, President Biden was out pardoning turkeys. I think they were peach and blossom yesterday at the White House, sparing their lives. But talk about the seriousness of this, Paul O'Brien, as you talk about a signal to the Native American community. President Biden just went to Arizona to ask forgiveness for the U.S. history of how they have treated Native Americans in residential schools. Leonard Peltier was in one of those schools.
That's right. Right now, it feels to many of the folks that we're talking to that the relationship between this administration and Native American leadership is really fractured. And this would send such a positive signal. Some time ago, I stood alongside some of those leaders outside the White House calling for Leonard's release. Many of us were arrested on that day, and the administration simply refused to hear what these remarkable leaders in the Native American community are saying, which is, if you want to show that you are genuinely committed to healing this relationship, you will take steps on Leonard's behalf. So far, nothing.
Welcome back. We are going to now go to a commercial break, and right after that commercial break, we're going to welcome our guests to today's broadcast. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Please stay with us.
Our brothers and sisters in Palestine are enduring unimaginable hardships. Ashraful Aid teams are on the ground, delivering crucial aid to those in need. But we can't do it alone. Palestine is suffering and they need your help. Your support can make a world of difference. Visit www.ashrafulaid.org today and donate to bring hope, relief, and healing to those who are in need.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness, and every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. Come to us. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and freezer card calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031-208-9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
Welcome.
World-class financial services only at Sapphire Global, your financial partner. If you are looking for Islamic Sharia and ethical financial products, look no further. Sapphire Global offers a wide range of financial service offerings from short-term to life and investments. A full-service center with all financial requirements under one brand. Our highly skilled and experienced consultants are ready to help protect your financial future. Contact us on 041 001 0184 or visit our website on www.sapphireglobalfs.com. Sapphire Global is an authorized financial services provider.
Hey, Gulam.
Yeah?
Did I return your lawnmower last month?
No, Ba, you didn't.
Oh, no. Now what'll I do? I wanted to borrow it again, man.
With Randry Jewelers, you won't have to borrow or lend because the prices are so well trimmed on all gold and diamond jewelry. Alternatively, we could remake your old jewelry into a brilliant new design. Visit Randry Jewelers at 151 Stevens Lamini Road, Musgrave, Durban. Randry Jewelers, the family name you can trust.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, our focus for today is on political prisoners in the U.S. And we begin the conversation with Paulette D'auteuil of the Jericho Movement. Without any further ado, let's welcome her to the broadcast. Salam's greetings, my sister. Glad to have you back with us, Paulette.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for inviting me, and peace and greetings to you as well.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and about Jericho and how you became involved in the organization. Let's begin there.
Well, that's many years ago now, but I have been part of revolutionary organizations since my teenage years. I became involved, a friend of mine in high school, which was in the late 50s. I graduated at 60. His father committed suicide because he could not afford the medical care that was necessary. And I said to my father, how can that be possible in this country that he couldn't afford medical care? And you get it because we're in the Navy. And my father said, oh my goodness, I have a socialist in my household. I didn't realize that was socialism, but I've come to understand definitely the road that capitalism has played, in not allowing people insurance when it's necessary. Mm-hmm. And from that time on, I became interested in working towards a change in this country. I was in the late 90s. I moved to New York, and I was a high school teacher. And I met Safia Bukhari, who was an organizer for the Jericho Movement, what it has become. And she said, well, we're looking to get all the political prisoners together because we're going to start an organization that will help them, as many of them have now been in prison for 25 years. And so she told me this prisoner she was looking for, and I said, well, I know him. I've been writing to him. And so Veronza Bowers became one of the Jericho political prisoners, who was just released earlier this year after another 45, 50 years inside. And so when after the organization and we had a march, I've continued to work with the Jericho Movement. I was a co-chair for a while, and now I'm a member of the advisory board where we older former chair people now work to help build the organization and to keep our political prisoners in the forefront of this struggle for change in the United States. Mm-hmm. When you talk about Leonard, I first met Leonard in 1972 when they were headed for the Trail of Broken Treaties. And we kept in touch, and as things progressed, after the shootout, we developed the Leonard Peltier Defense Committee with Steve Robidoux, who was his cousin, and other members of his family and American Indian Movement people. So I worked for Leonard for many years, and he is one of the many prisoners in the Jericho movement. And I know the last time I was on, I got to speak about Sister Afia Siddiqui, who is another long-term political prisoner and a member of the Jericho movement. So I have felt that people who have stood up and called this country for its cruelty and its warmongering around the world deserve every right to be free. First Amendment says we have freedom of speech, but we all know when you speak, there are consequences, and for many of our comrades, those consequences have been long years in prison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. What would you say is the most compelling thing about Leonard's case?
Well, I was watching the thing with Democracy Now!, and I think the most compelling is the misconduct of the FBI in his trial. When Leonard went on trial in Fargo, North Dakota, the FBI set up this reign of fear for that area. They convinced the judge that they were going to be sharpshooters and Indians were going to be attacking. The jury was kept in, when it was transported, in a bus with the windows all blacked out so nobody could see it. And they convinced the judge that what should be tried was just the event. And we know that the event came about because of misconduct of the government in Pine Ridge. Dickie Wilson, who had a paramilitary organization called the Goon Squad, or Guardians of the Ogallala Nation. The Bob and Dino, who were tried first and found not guilty on the grounds of self-defense, were able to show why the shootout took place. What was happening on Pine Ridge, what was happening on Indian country, the fact that Dickie Wilson signed over a quarter of the reservation that had uranium on it. And all of these things led to elders asking young members of the American Indian Movement to come and live on their land. Grandma and Grandpa Jumping Bull invited Bob, Dino, their families, many young Native people from the Navajo Nation, the Dene, came and lived there, and was just one of the encampments of AIM to protect the elders. They took them places, they cut wood, they had big gardens, and they became their personal bodyguards as well as their children. And they also, during this period of time, was a rebirth of culture and of religion. Bob grew up in the city. He did not know his native religion. He did not know his native language. And so being part of that on Grandma and Grandpa Jumping Bulls, he and other young people were invited to different ceremonies to learn their language, to be able to understand what was happening and why it was important that they be protected. And so when these two white people came onto the bottom of the property that Grandma and Grandpa Jumping Bulls had got out, pulled out their guns, and started shooting, the young Native people responded. This was an attack. This was not a shootout. This was an attack by the FBI against this camp. And the people in the camp, Bob, Dino, Leonard, all responded, as well as many of the young people. And this firefight lasted probably no more than 25 minutes. And at the end of the time, these two young men, who we have always felt were a setup by the FBI to send them into that land to create this problem, were dead. And Bob and Dino and Leonard led this group out of the Jumping Bulls up a short hill and then into Pine Ridge, where people protected them. And there was a Sundance going on. And Dino and Leonard were Sundancers that year. And so after the Sundance, there was a raid on Crow Dogs, and Dino was captured. Bob had taken a group of young people, and they were headed to Oklahoma to Carter Camp's encampment. And along the way, their car exploded, and Bob was captured at that time. Leonard had chosen to go to Canada to seek asylum with Native people up there because at one time there was no border. Native people moved north and south with their nations. And so many of the Anishinaabe, which is what Bob and Leonard were also in Canada. And so he went up there to seek political asylum. Mm-hmm. And at that point in time, Bob and Dino were already had been captured, and they decided to have their trial because they did not know how long Leonard would be there. And during their trial, they were able to explain to the jury why, in fact, they engaged in this firefight. And they also had the head of the FBI, Kelly, come and testify. He was called as a witness for the defense. And they asked him just one question and set up the scenario. If people came on your land and started shooting at you and you responded, was it self-defense? And he said, yes. And that's exactly what had happened. So we were lucky at that point that the people in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, understood that. And Bob and Dino were found not guilty on the grounds of self-defense.
What can folk do at this point? It's been it's going on 5 decades, almost 5 decades.
That's right.
Has been wrongfully imprisoned. He's been a political prisoner as a result of all of what was going on at that time and the community's response to it.
Well, I and many others considered Leonard not just to be a political prisoner, but a prisoner of war.
Of war, yes.
Right.
Yes.
He was a member and is a member of the Turtle Mountain Band in North Dakota, a treated nation. They have a nation-to-nation response with this government, which means that if anything, you know, he should have had that as a defense, that he was defending his people, which, as Leonard has maintained, and all of us that know Leonard and know the situation totally agree with. What Leonard was doing was defending the right of Grandma and Grandpa Jumping Bull to live on that land as elders in peace. Mm-hmm. And instead, from the time Leonard was captured in Canada, the false affidavits that were created by the FBI, and the trial that did not allow him to show what had happened there, nor to say that it was self-defense, just snowballed, and Leonard was convicted and given 2 life sentences.
So what can folk do today to support him? What can folk do to support Leonard? And also, what can folk do to support the work of Jericho National or the Jericho movement?
Right. What both Leonard and Sister Afia have asked for clemency, for compassionate release.
Mm-hmm.
This means that their sentences would be commuted.
Right.
And they would be allowed out, probably on parole. But what they can do to help both of them is to call the White House comment line. And that number is 202-456-1111. And in a polite manner, ask that President Biden take under the advisement that Leonard Peltier should be granted clemency and allowed to return to Turtle Mountain and live out the remainder of his life. Leonard just turned 80 and is in very poor health.
Yes.
So that's one of the things they can do. They can go to Amnesty International page and sign on the request, the petition put out by them for clemency for Leonard. The NDN Collective also has a clemency petition on their website. They can talk to their friends, and I would like them, those that go to church and say that they are Christians, then go to their church and have their social justice centers send in letters to the president, have their pastors write to the president and talk about compassion. And as a Christian, the right to defend yourself as an American is given. And we have all these people who have claimed that they was self-defense and they are never even charged. And here Leonard was part of a group protecting Grandma and Grandpa Jumping Bull and members of his family that lived on that land, and was given 2 life sentences. So just the fact that because he is a person of color, because it involved 2 FBI agents, the government has been egregious in their lack of understanding. All these presidents have gone to Indian country and been given beautiful gifts and talked to the people, and they say, oh, we're here to help the Native people. We want to do this, that, and the other for you. But never one of them has been willing to take the responsibility as a president and grant clemency for Leonard. And part of that is because the role the FBI has played. Clinton was set to give Leonard clemency, but the FBI told him if he did that, he would be persona non grata for the rest of his life.
Mm-hmm.
2 political prisoners that he gave clemency to told both of their advisors, we're white people, we're white women, we know we're going to get out. Tell Clinton to let Leonard go and we'll wait. And of course, Clinton didn't follow any direction except to protect himself and refused to grant clemency to Leonard.
Yes, he did. In 1 minute, what can folk do to support the work of Jericho? In 1 minute.
The Jericho Movement has a website, thejerichomovement.com. There is on there a list of political prisoners. with their bios, people can go on that site, find a political prisoner and write. It has become death by incarceration. You can no longer send cards in to prisoners. You can only write on white paper with a black pen. And it's not even sent to them directly many times. It goes to a clearinghouse. They take a picture of it and they send the picture to the prisoner. So prisoner's not even getting an original anymore. So they can support that. There are just so many things they can write. We have videos. There's the incident at Ogallala and a wonderful film called The Warrior that you can show to at your house. You can have a house party. You can have organized like we did when you came at a cultural center and show these movies, which gives people an understanding of what happened and definitely shows the utter ugliness of the FBI in their treatment of Native people and people of color.
Absolutely. Okay, my sister, I want to thank you, Paulette, for taking the time out to join us today. This has been a very beneficial conversation we've had, and I'm sure that there are many folk in different parts of the world who see the broadcast who will benefit from it and really appreciate it. So I want to thank you, and may the Almighty bless the rest of your day. Thank you for joining.
Thank you again, Mauri.
All right, you're very welcome. All right, let's go to our second commercial break, and we'll resume this focus on political prisoners on the other side, inshallah.
Searching for elite local and international investment and advisory services from an award-winning firm? Look no further than the Belmont Mayer Group, your gateway to unparalleled investment and wealth management. At Belmont Mayer, we believe in the art of wealth creation, a meticulous process fueled by our unwavering commitment to excellence. With a focus on providing elite alternative investments and quality advice, we also pride ourselves on maximizing value for our esteemed investors, as seen through our consistent outperformance. Your financial success is our top priority. Join us at Belmont Mayer and experience the difference firsthand. Ready to embark on a journey of greatness? Contact us today. Reach out to the Belmont Mayer Group on 078-786-1698. Call or WhatsApp or email us at info@belmontmayer.com. Elevate your financial future with Belmont Mayer, where every detail matters.
You know, it's a wonder how kids get anything done these days. With all the distractions, when do they even get time to study? As a mother, all I can really do is make sure they have all they need to perform at their best. That's why I choose to include Sunfoil, triple refined pure sunflower oil with every meal I make. Naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether I'm cooking, frying, or baking, I know every dish will be a wholesome one. Sunfoil, now we're cooking.
When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean Al-Bayt Lodge, your true home away from home. Al-Bayt is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities. Conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities, your stay will be truly unforgettable, as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Al-Bayt has to offer. For reservations, call 041-583-6415 or visit www.albaytlodge.co.za.
Valley's Motor Spares. We supply motor spares and accessories for all makes and models of motor cars, LDVs, buckies, trucks, and earth-moving equipment. We deliver on time, every time. Please contact us via WhatsApp on 014-592-0925 or call 014-592-0925 or visit 28 Zenderling Street, Rustenburg. Remember the name, Valley's Motor Spares.
Amman means safety. The Amman School of Excellence in Finetown, South Africa, is securing the futures of underprivileged children by providing world-class education in a safe and nurturing environment. Sponsor a child for only 15,000 Rand per year or any amount. A quality education at Amman presents a pathway out of poverty and a brighter future for South Africa. Africa Muslims Agency. Empowering, educating, inspiring.
It's a new beginning. It's a new era. Salam Media, humanitarian journalism.
Welcome back to today's broadcast titled Injustice Anywhere is a Threat to Justice Everywhere. A memorable quote made famous by a revolutionary Christian leader and martyr by the name of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Next up is a short piece of video from remarks delivered to the activists that were present at a Gaza-related student encampment last May at a university in Pennsylvania. The speaker via telephone is the award-winning journalist and political prisoner Mumia Abu Jamal. Let's see the video, Brother Sadiq.
Brothers, sisters, comrades, friends, what are you doing? Think about that question. What are all of you doing? And why are you being punished and threatened by the state? Think about that. If you think about it, the answer should be as obvious as it is shocking. You are protesting against genocide, protesting against mega violence, paid for, in large part, by American taxpayers who are buying the weapons used by the state of Israel to punish the people of Gaza. Notice I said punish the people of Gaza. This is not, in my estimation, a war between Hamas and Israel. It's a war between Israel and the people of Gaza, the people of Palestine. If 80% of your targets are not members of Hamas, then either you don't know how to shoot, or you intend to hit what you hit. You intend to bomb what you bomb. You intend to kill who you kill. And think about this, my first question to you. You are being punished for protesting genocide. Who has the right to punish you for doing this? What you are doing is the rightest thing in the world. Think of that. The state itself.
This is a call from Pennsylvania State Correctional Institution, Mahanoy. This call is subject to recording and monitoring.
And by the state, I mean the United States, is buying, or selling, I should say, 2-ton bombs for Israel to drop on the homes, the universities, the schools, the mosques, the stores, the apartment buildings, the homes, and now the tents of Palestine. Who is on the side of right, and who is on the side of wrong? These are questions that you have to grapple with, and you have to understand the nature of the state, the nature of the United States, the nature of client states, the nature of settler colonialism as it depersonalizes, dehumanizes, disappears, destroys, and really treats the Palestinians as if they are not human beings. But you all know that. If you didn't know that human beings are suffering indescribably, that today they are the wretched of the earth, if you didn't know that, you wouldn't be there. You're there because your hearts, your minds, your souls have been touched and moved to take to the streets, to build an encampment, and to fight for the lives, the liberties, the liberation of a people in Palestine. For that, you are not to be punished. You should be awarded. You're doing the most human thing you can do.
This is a call from Pennsylvania State Correctional Institution, Mahanoy. This call is subject to recording and monitoring.
So I don't know what your administrators are going to say. I have an idea, but I don't know. I don't know what your government is going to say. I have an idea, but I don't know. But as for me, I am going to commend all of you for doing the work of saving the lives of the most oppressed people in this era. I thank you all, and I love you all. I admire you. This is Mumia Abu Jamal.
I wanted to show and pay homage, show that video and pay homage to this brother, this very conscious brother who is still giving light from a place of darkness. Mumia was convicted of murder and given the death penalty in 1982 for the December 1981 death of a Philadelphia police officer by the name of Daniel Faulkner. Mumia's death sentence was overturned by a federal court, and I believe it was 2001. Prosecutors agreed to a life without parole commutation in 2011 after fighting for a number of years to have that that decision made by the judge who ordered him off of death row reversed. It should be noted that beyond the evidence that points to Mumia's innocence, and this is very important, and the fact that he did not receive a fair trial, the global activism around his case has been a primary factor in staying an unjust execution. I can't emphasize this more. You know, I remember when the first death warrant was signed off on. I remember this like it was yesterday. In fact, Tom Ridge, who became governor, he ran for governor of Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and he promised, one of his promises was that if he became governor, he was going to sign the death warrant that would ensure Mumia would be executed. And he did just that. He won the gubernatorial race, and the first act that he committed was to sign off on a death warrant. But that death warrant triggered a response within the community that was just unbelievable. We traveled from the Washington, D.C. area with a bunch of folk. And I mean, just people came in, converged in downtown Philadelphia from all over the country. I mean, the city hall was surrounded by folk from all over the country. And, you know, the short of it was that the execution was stayed. And then the struggle, you know, just went on. It continued for Mumia to, you know, for that threat of capital punishment to be removed completely from the neck of Mumia Abu-Jamal. It came about primarily through the conscious, committed activism of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, both here and abroad. I mean, I've come to learn over the years that Mumia is just as well known in many capitals, in many of the European capitals, as well as, of course, the global South, as he is in the United States. But again, it's because of the conscious, determined activism. This is what has kept the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania from being able to do what a very oppressive system in that state has wanted to do for many years, and that is to put this man to death. But the struggle is ongoing for Mumia's freedom, for him to receive a fair trial. Beyond Mumia's innocence, you know, the points that you know, the evidence that points to Mumia's evidence is the fact that he did not receive a fair trial. You know, the global activism around his case has been, again, a primary factor in ensuring that he is not wrongfully executed. Now, as a conscious and committed president of the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists, before his incarceration, before he became a political prisoner of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, this is a man who was known for his journalism. From 1978 to 1980, he was the president of the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists. Mumia became a target as a result of his journalistic activism. He became a target of the establishment for exposing injustices within the system, with special emphasis on the naked repression that the Philadelphia Police Department was guilty of in the Black community. And of special note on this particular point is the report that Mumia has given over the years to the Philadelphia-based MOVE organization, especially after they came under deadly attack by the city police administration under the late Frank Rizzo in 1978. Now, following his conviction, Amnesty International decried the proceedings as having been below the international standard for a fair trial. Let me repeat that. Amnesty International, in the aftermath of Mumia's trial, what was presented as a fair trial, Amnesty International made it very clear that the proceeding that Mumia had was far below the international standard of a fair trial. Now, the struggle for justice in this now 43-year-old saga continues. Now, on a final note, I want to shed a little light on something very important, on a very important a decision that was recently made involving a U.S. penal institution known as FCI Dublin in the Bay Area of California. Let's see that video, Brother Saalakhan.
While it has been called the Rape Club, now Dublin's scandal-plagued women's federal prison is being shut down. The Bureau of Prisons announcing that closure this morning, saying it hasn't been able to effectively address employee misconduct and other concerns at that facility. Here's NBC Bay Area's Judy Hernandez.
Mr. Garcia touched me inappropriately, went through my clothes, went through under my shirts and in my pants.
Former inmate Rolanda Ashley describes the abuse she says she endured at the hands of the former warden of Dublin's Federal Correctional Institution. Abuse, she says, that's still impacting her.
And this stuff is still haunting me. I don't trust the probation officers. I don't trust any of the staff for federal, because they failed me. They're failing people in prison.
Since 2021, 8 prison employees, including the former warden, have been charged with sexually abusing inmates. 2 have been convicted and 5 others have pled guilty. A judge appointed a special master to oversee the prison. She started just last week. But today, the Bureau of Prisons announced it's closing the facility, saying its efforts to correct things haven't worked. Quote, despite these steps and resources, we have determined that FCI Dublin is not meeting expected standards and that the best course of action is to close the facility, they said.
The BOP does not want an independent person poking around in their business because they're going to find out a lot of things.
Inmate advocates say the prison is trying to evade accountability. And they say transferring inmates is nothing more than punishing victims.
All these people who are survivors, they're being transferred to these prisons where they don't know anyone. Some of these women have been incarcerated for decades at Dublin, and they are going to be uprooted from their community and family that they have established in the prison here at Dublin.
There's no justice if you're going to just transfer the women out to another facility. That's not justice. That's not going to do anything.
Ashley says prison abuse isn't just a Dublin problem. She and others are calling for compassionate release.
We don't need to be transferred to another prison for being sexually abused. No, we need accountability.
The Board of Prisons declined to tell us if transfers have already begun. But today the judge ordered that each case must be reviewed by the special master prior to transfer. Inmate advocates say they will not stop fighting. More than 60 lawsuits are still underway. In Dublin, Jody Hernandez, NBC Bay Area News.
On a final note, as it pertains to that video clip that you just saw, my immediate response, when I saw the report, was to write the following, which I sent out via my own social media. The same needs to happen at FMC Carswell in Fort Worth, Texas, the brutal home of Dr. Afia Siddiqui. FMC Carswell needs to be shut down. There should not just be but there should not just be a shutdown and a reshuffling of employees. There should be compassionate release of prisoners where warranted, and full criminal accountability for Bureau of Prison employees who committed crimes against vulnerable female inmates. This was my response, and I stand by it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us to be conscious enough to be among those who engage in this ongoing process of applying pressure for positive change within our quote-unquote criminal justice system across the board. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us to be among those who help this country live up to the better part of itself. For far too long, we have been seeing the uglier twin of the two Americas. You know, that America that we project to the world as the land of liberty and justice for all, and the other America that could be spelled with 3 Ks as opposed to the C. And we, you know, the America that we have seen much too much of over the course of this country's existence. We've just seen too much of the other America, the America that is not so beautiful, the America that is not just, the America that does not provide liberty and justice for all. May Allah Ta'ala bless those of us who are conscious to do everything in our power to help this country live up to the better part of itself before it's too late. Before it's too late. On that note, we end as we normally do each week with a highly relevant verse from the Quran that reads in Arabic, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Wal Asr, Innal insana lafi kusr, illa alladhina amanu wa amalu salihati, wa tawassaw bil haqq, wa tawassaw bis sabr. Which means, in the translation of the meaning, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, by the token of time through the ages. Surely humanity is in loss, except those who believe and do good, and exhort one another to truth, and exhort one another to patience. Ameen. Peace be unto you. Assalamu alaikum.